I've been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
That's what, and then I'm like, you've got nothing, I want to keep you up, keep your...
Hand?
So what are you touch on it first?
No, I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
Yeah.
This is like the plans that has happened to us. We've been walking, we can't
Can we get a van one of
racist
90 foot.
nothing happened.
See you, alright?
I want us to spend a little bit of time on exploring what is the expectation of the police. Here he is getting attacked. So they're arresting there. So watch him. There he is on the left-hand side. See him on the left. Watch the boy grab him round the neck. Look, pull him backwards. He gets punched by the other guy. And she comes in and grabs him. He's probably a bit disorientated, bit shaken up. I don't know. But she comes in, arrests him. And what I want to talk about is, what is the responsibility of the police, and what is their responsibility to the British public in terms of, well, what is their oath? So we're going to go to the horse's mouth. Have a look at this. This is the office of constable. This is on the POLFED, the Police Federation, policefederation.org. This is their official website. It says here, every constable is an independent legal entity. The public's guarantee of impartiality. Officers of the Crown operate independent of undue influence, interference, and with a personal responsibility, which requires a unique type of personal commitment. Yeah, you're not wrong there. Now, what is the office of constable? Every sworn police officer in England and Wales is a constable, irrespective of rank. It is from the office of constable that each officer derives their powers. Now, what is that power? Swearing allegiance to the Crown. In England and Wales, those who decide to become police officers take on an oath at the point of becoming a constable. The oath, or attestation, is set within the legislation of this country and is as follows. I do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve the Queen in the office of constable with fairness, integrity, diligence, and impartiality, upholding fundamental human rights and according equal respect to all people, and that I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and preserved, and prevent all offences against people and property, and that, while I continue to hold the said office, I will do, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof faithfully according to the law. So, police officers must be allowed to police with discretion. Okay, so they get to decide whether they exercise powers on behalf of the Crown to maintain order and to protect anyone that's been harmed. Police officers have authority under the Crown for the protection of life and property, maintenance or order, prevention and detection of crime and prosecution of offenders against the peace. With the imposition of central and politically set targets, there are dangers that officers' discretion and operational independence is being compromised. Because it says here, police officers cannot legally be instructed to arrest a person. So there's no, they say, oh, you know, we've been told that blah, blah, we're going to arrest you. No, that's not how it works. The authority is with the individual police officer. I've decided, based on evidence, I am going to make an arrest using the powers bestowed upon me under my oath to the Crown to uphold the peace, using their experience, knowledge and discretion to take the most appropriate course of action to fulfill their function as officers to the Crown. This is their primary objective. They're not out to two-tier police or to be selective over who they choose or to make things up and decide to arrest one person without evidence or the say-so of another. In the Henry Nowak case, it was an allegation on the telephone during the call that Henry Nowak had been racist towards the man who ultimately was his murderer, and that the police acted upon that call. But in another instance, you'll witness, and there's loads of instances all over YouTube and the internet, go and have a look, that where the police arrive on the scene and a person who's been stopped or arrested or held under powers of stop and search, etc., will be told, oh, we had a report of an incident from the general public that you're causing a nuisance or you've committed a crime, etc., etc. You fit the description. Okay, who's that person? Oh, we're not at liberty to say. And then if you dig a bit further into some cases, they will come out and say, yeah, we don't get details sent down. We just get the call. They get the shout. Essentially, the dispatch sends out the order. There's been an assault at blah, blah, on the corner of blah, blah, description of male and female, etc., etc. But there's no details, okay? So would there have been a detail around, oh, it was a racially motivated attack that Henry Nowak? No, there's no details. They're there to establish details, to investigate on the spot what has happened here. So when Henry Nowak on the floor saying, I've been stabbed, I can't breathe, and then they proceed to handcuff him and he bled out. Because they ignored him. When he said, I've been stabbed 7 times, he said it. The police officer read him his rights and told him, no, I don't think you have, mate. Based on what? His duty as an officer under his oath is to investigate the situation. But the two-tier policing that apparently they're being trained into following is the problem. Police officers must be apolitical, impartial, and accountable for their actions. If not, how and what we police will become subject to political wing and electioneering. The operational independence of our police service comes with the office of constable. The office of constable ensures the integrity, impartiality, and accountability of operational policing. If we value the rule of law, we must protect the office of constable and ensure forces have the ability to train officers to be apolitical, impartial, independent, and accountable. Police officers must gain a foundation of knowledge and experience in the execution of duty according to the rule of law, the use of authority and discretion, core skills, and the practicalities and reality of policing. Now, in the 60s, right up until the 70s, the late 70s, the early 80s, and really probably until the 90s, the police had certain expectations on the physicality, as they say nowadays. I'm not sure that is a real word, but apparently it's been made one. The physicality of being a policeman, you had to exceed a certain height, you had to exceed a certain IQ. You weren't allowed to show tattoos. You weren't allowed to have piercings. You weren't allowed to smoke on the job. You weren't allowed to wear makeup. You had to have your hair tied up in a bun or under your hat if you was a woman or a man with long hair. You had to be clean shaven, presentable, and follow the letter of the law, the rule of law. And of course, that all changed. In the 90s, they dumbed down the police service. There is no getting around this. That's what they did. They lowered the IQ for entry point. They lowered the physical attributes required, such as height. And there was a reason for that. It was because they needed to be able to apprehend criminals. They needed to be seen to be authoritative, and size is generally a show of power, subconsciously, consciously, through body language. And they also moved the goalposts on things like tattoos, piercings. You're not even allowed to chew gum on the job. You have to address people as madam, as sir. And all of that got replaced with what ultimately became modern day policing. Now, here we have the basic mission. Sir Robert Peel founded the police force, the office of constable. He said there are 9 principles of policing. The first is that the basic mission for which the police exist is to prevent crime and order. Prevent, remember that word, prevent crime and disorder. Number two, the ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police actions. So we, the public, have to have faith in the police because ultimately we empower them with the powers under the oath of the Crown to police us. It's by consent. They police by consent. So the police must secure the willing cooperation of the public in voluntary observance of the law to be able to secure and maintain the respect of the public. You understand that? We watch them, how they police. If they do not police according to the 9 principles of policing and operate under their oath of the Crown to serve the public and to prevent crime and disorder, then they are being judged to have brought the police and their authority into question, i.e. disrepute. And they have to be challenged and stopped. And they have to cease to be a police officer. There's no, oh, we're going to suspend them, or, yeah, we had a word with them and they're not going to do it again, or they're suspended with pay, or in the Harry Noam case, where that man clearly did not carry out the function of a police officer under his oath. He didn't investigate. He didn't listen to the person who said he'd been stabbed and was actually the victim of a crime, a murder. And also, there are witnesses, millions of witnesses who have seen the video, the actual evidence. We don't need an inquiry or we don't need a court case to show what we've all seen. We, the public, decide, is that person operating under independent authority granted to him by operating under the oath of the police by commission of the people, i.e. the consent of the public, to protect the Crown and the division of Crown from the people and politics. And so that police officer and whoever was there on site failed in their job. They failed under the first 3 principles of police, and that's before we've even read on to the others. Let's have a look at number 4. The degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity of the use of physical force. What does that mean? So let's break it down. The degree of cooperation, that is, how much are we prepared to accept and to take part of the public, that's us, the public, that can be secured, meaning what can they expect from us and what are our guidelines? Are we accepting of their behavior? Do we cooperate with their behavior? That can be secured if our ability to trust them in the operation of police under their oath, protecting the public and preventing crime and disorder, if that diminishes proportionately, meaning the scales tip in the favor of no, then to the necessity of the use of physical force, then they're acting outside of the oath. Now, to get a man who's face down in the gravel and drag him out by the seat of his pants, and then whilst listening to him claiming he'd been stabbed, to ignore his duty, to use excessive force in this situation. Henry Nowak, a boy of 18 years old, who had been repeatedly stabbed in the back, in the legs, as he's trying to jump a fence to get away from his attacker, has landed face down, he's bleeding out, he needs help. The officer needs to assess the situation, not just drag the poor boy out. Anything could have happened to him. Could have had a broken neck. He could have had any kind of problem with a fall, a spinal injury. He had no idea. He just took the law into his own hands. The degree of cooperation of the public, I'm saying, I'm the public, and I know I don't speak for myself. I know we're all out here saying exactly the same thing. The degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminished proportionately, in this case, to the necessity of the use of physical force. He used excessive force. So that police officer in the Nowak case, on 4 of the principles thus far, he's failed. Let's look at number 5. Police can preserve public favour, not by catering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. Well, that's self-explanatory, isn't it? He was not impartial. He took it on the word of the dispatch, which took it on the word of the caller, who was actually the attacker and ultimately murder. And then the police officer who arrived on the scene followed that chain of events. That was his basis of law. he had no intent on establishing the facts on the scene. So he's broken number 5 as well. Number 6, police use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, or warning is found to be insufficient. Well, clearly, he never gave Henry Nowak an opportunity to persuade him. In fact, he didn't listen to him. He told him, no, you ain't, mate. He gaslighted Henry Novak when he told him he'd been stabbed. This is after he's dragged him out, by the way. So he's disrespected his physical being, his sovereignty. There was no conversation. There was no mature adult conversation between the two parties because the police officer is operating under independence. He's an individual exercised with powers bestowed upon him to exercise an independent in that scenario to prevent crime and disorder. He's an independent operative operating as a constable. So his warning, if there was no warning, was found to be insufficient. So he did not attempt to persuade, he did not attempt to advise, and he did not attempt to give a warning on why he was then given the only option open to the police officer, which was to use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law. The boy was face down in the gravel. He's not moving. He's been stabbed 7 times. He's bleeding out. There's no case for, he could have got up and stabbed me. He could have got up and shot me with a gun. No, he's face down in the gravel. Yeah? So, and then to pull him up and to ignore his pleas for help and he couldn't breathe, and then to handcuff him and read him his rights without an investigation, without any questioning, without any establishment of what had happened on the scene. So he's failed in number 6. First 6 of the 9 principles failed. Let's move to number 7. Police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the police are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. So he's like us. The only difference between a police officer and a member of the parliament is the oath that he stands under to uphold peace and to prevent crime. But that is incumbent upon every member of the public. So we are judge and jury. If we decide collectively through the morality and through the laws and through the rule of law that an individual operating under oath is flagrantly abusing the law or has misrepresented it or has abused it, then he's brought the police force into disrepute. So 7 points of the Peel 9 principles of policing that officer has failed to carry out his duty upon. Number 8, they should always direct their attention strictly towards their functions. In this case, in the Henry Novak case, his function is to arrive on the scene, carry out an inquiry, an investigation, find out what's happened. That's his duty, and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. Well, he did, didn't he? Because he made a judgment. He decided, A, when the boy said he'd been stabbed, he hadn't. B, when he told him he couldn't breathe, that he couldn't. And C, he exercised authority by using excessive physical abuse onto the boy by pulling him out on his seat with his pants from the gravel. So he's usurped the powers of the judiciary. He's acted like judge and jury, hasn't he? And executor in this case, because it was him, ultimately, if it's deemed that his actions led to the boy not getting the help enough to save him, then he's a co-conspirator in a murder, because the convicted killer planned and executed that boy based on an argument that he'd already been seen in previous footage waving a knife or threatening people. He had every intent to hurt somebody at some point, and ultimately that led to Henry Novak's death. So he murdered him, didn't he? It's not like he was out shopping and somebody attacked him and he ran into an ironmonger's shop and there was an axe on the side on the counter, and to avoid himself being killed because the man was coming at him with a knife, he picked up the axe, turned around, swung it to threaten him, accidentally killed him, the man fell to the floor. Even that's not murder, that's manslaughter, self-defense. If you go out carrying a knife with the intent to use it and then you ultimately use it, that's murder. That police officer and his co-conspirators in this case have failed on in 8 points of the Peel 9 principles of policing. What's number 9? The test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with it. Yeah, the test of police efficiency. So what they're saying is the job of the police is to not allow society to get into the position where Henry Nowak's being stabbed in the back of the leg trying to escape a murderer. The police are arriving on the scene and misjudging the whole thing and being judge, jury, and executioner. The boy loses his life. The public are in outrage because the preceding 8 principles of Peel's policing have been flagrantly broken and ignored and abused. And number 9 is all about, well, let's not get into that situation. Let's not let our society get into that situation. Well, of course, there's a reason our society is in that situation. We'll come back to it. This is the College of Policing, which is the website we can see up there. The Force Diversity, Equality and Inclusion, the DEI board. These are the key details. Diversity, equality and inclusion, DEI. Okay, this is one from Essex Police. This gives you an idea of where the police is headed to. So their aim, the Diversity, Equality and Inclusion, DEI, board was established in 2021 following the launch of the force's Diversity, Equality and Inclusion strategy in 2020. Blah, 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 blah. The aim of the board, provide better insight, governance and scrutiny of processes against the 5 objectives outlined in the diversity strategy. Or 1, improving inclusive culture, enhancing public trust and confidence, workforce representation, narrowing the disparity gap, adopting and advancing. And advancing, this is the key word here, and advancing the national DEI strategy. Advancing diversity, equality and inclusion. That's a political statement. That is nothing to do with policing. The police's job is outlined in the Peel's 9 principles of policing. That's policing. And I'm pretty sure it says there, let's go back to it, that they are meant to not be political, right? It's not a political organization. Let's see if we can find that. Here, officers of the Crown operate independent of undue influence, interference, and with a personal responsibility which requires a unique type of person and commitment. They are meant to be apolitical. And if we move forward here, you can see that they actually say this in their document, what it means. And here we have it. Restrictions on the private life of a constable. Abstaining from any activity which is likely to interfere with the impartial discharge of duty or to give the impression to the public that may interfere. This can apply to immediate family also. And here, further down, it clearly says, however, we are each independent and separately accountable. That's a constable. Operational independence is a guiding principle of policing. Getting permission from the appropriate disciplinary authority for place of residence, not willfully refusing or neglecting the discharge any lawful debt, not being able to have a business interest without the consent of the appropriate disciplinary authority, and this one is the most important, abstaining from an active, it's loose term, right? There's a reason it's in those little markers there, which you will find out as we continue this podcast. Abstaining from an active role in any party politics. Okay, so it probably means that they can't run as a local MP. They can't get involved in a political party. They can't say, I'm here acting on behalf of the Labour, the Conservative, etc. They're not allowed to do that. Otherwise, they are in breach of their responsibility underneath their position of constable. So they're bringing themselves into question. So abstaining from an active role in any party politics. And if we go back to the disparity, the aim of the DEI, adopting and advancing the national DEI strategy. DEI strategy. And this is where it gets real crazy. This is the diversity certification. So this is their website, right? This is where you go to get a certificate in DEI. Perhaps DEI matters. What is DEI? DEI dictionary, the evolution of DEI, challenges, benefits, promoting, and resources. And here on this page, it says DEI is not political, but it can be politically weaponized. DEI is not political, but it can be politically weaponized in a way that hurts everyone. When DEI is used as a political tool, it can lead to discrimination, exclusion, and a lack of opportunity for everyone. This isn't just about opportunity. In the case of the police carrying out their duty, they are advancing the national DEI strategy. Their intended outcome is to improve inclusive culture, increase in volume the equality of diversity training across the force, to stay safe data, which shows confidence levels of staff to declare their personal characteristics with the force, and an indicator around inclusive culture. So if you're gay, it's okay. If you're Muslim, it's okay. If you're etc. etc. They want to increase workforce representation, i.e. they want to recruit from areas of ethnicity that are not represented within the police force. Narrow the disparity gap in relation to the use of police powers. What does that mean? The disparity gap in relation visible through analytical data pertaining to use of force of stop and search. The disparity gap. So they're saying if in the community the majority of white people commit crime, then they'll stop more white people. But if the numbers in the report say 80% of people, white people, are committing the crime, but it's disparaging because you can't go out and stop out of every 100 people, 80 have to be white because it's not DEI. It's not equal. So in their advancement to bring things into line with the DEI, they may well have said, let's reduce that number to 50%, and then we'll stop blacks, Asians, etc. You know, so they'll go, okay, how are we represented in the Metropolitan Police area, for instance? Okay, we're 80% white, 10% black, 5% Asian, etc. You get it? So then they proportionately choose based on that number how to police? No, they will go on the figures of arrest. They will go on the figures of stop and search. They will go on the figures of their interaction with the public. Whatever their data is in the police force that they're deriving information from and making decisions on the back of, whatever that information is how they're deciding to address the ratio by which they stop and search. So if they've hit a quota, we stopped this amount of white people this month, and this amount have been prosecuted or have been investigated and have charges against them. And so we can't really do anything more to white people this month. Let's go after black people. And same vice versa, right? Too many black people, let's go and pick off some white people. And so in the briefing, when they're being passed down this through whatever the chain of command is, that's what they're saying. They're going to narrow the disparity gap. Then clearly there are systems in place to pass that information down and to make sure that certain areas, ethnicity, whatever it comes under, of the general public are targeted because the quota hasn't been met, to bring it in line and to close the disparity gap. As it says, they'll use analytical data to carry this out. The intended outcome is a reduction in the levels of disproportionality experienced by ethnic minority people when compared to white people. It clearly says compared to white people. This is disgusting. Imagine if this was the other way around. Let me read it in a way that this place would be shut down or investigated or people would be getting arrested. If it read this way around. Experienced by white people when compared to ethnic minorities or black people. Yeah, experienced by white people when compared to ethnic minority. Yeah, it'd be crazy, wouldn't it? It'd be like, what? What? So you mean you're targeting ethnic people? No, it's the other way round. They're saying that ethnic minority people compared to white people are getting more of a bashing. They're saying that we need to go and get white people. It says it here, look. Experienced by ethnic minority people when compared to white people. So the directive from the top down, allegedly, I have to say that to protect myself legally, but you're smart, you figure it out. This is what it says. Let's look at the next point. Successfully adopt and advance the police race action plan, measured through public confidence data relating to black people. Let's read it through and then we'll go through, change the word black for white. Staff survey information, disproportionality, data related to black people, the number of engagement levels involved with black community. Now let's go back and read it again using white. Successfully adopt and advance the police race action plan measured through public confidence data relating to white people, staff survey information, disproportionality, data related to white people, the number of engagement events involving white communities. Adopt and advance police race action plan, perhaps no. Okay, the last one. Improve trust and confidence with the public, local communities and victims of crime. Well, there's no public confidence in the Henry Novak case. To see an increase in confidence levels across communities, not getting that, and victims of crime through public confidence survey data. Farmer stood up on stage and called people that were rioting as a result of what happened in Southport as far right. No, they're just people that want to protect their children and have had enough of illegal immigrants and economic criminal migrants coming into the country to rape and pillage and kill and behead. Peace be upon Lee. So the description, we could go into this. The diversity and inclusion team led by a superintendent includes an inspector for DEI and positive action. It goes into who is assigned to push this through. Further down here, it says agenda items often include emerging issues such as disproportionality of stop and search data or national development affecting staff networks such as the UK Supreme Court ruling impacting the LGBTQ community. Politics. The agenda covers thematic DEI areas and topical issues, including the legal definition of sex under the Equality Act and the policing response to immigration and asylum seekers. What does this mean? Thematic DEI areas, response to immigration and asylum projects. Overall impact, learning, and supporting the cultural shift is deliver DEI training to all officers and staff. This includes a recent upstander package for the College of Policing aimed at further enhance inclusive culture and create safe space for the staff. So they've trained the police officers. They've said you need to focus more on ethnic minorities and focus less on white people. You need to focus less on gays and essentially take their word for whatever they said happened above anybody else. And the same with the ethnic minority groups. They're saying you need to take their word over what's happening. Because proportionately there are more white people in Britain, then it must be the case that then you have to subdivide the exercise of powers in the direction of the electorate based on where they proportionately fit in terms of ethnicity, political stance, or sexual preference. So they're basically saying, if you're white, male, heterosexual, you're up for abuse. And if you're at a march and somebody attacks you, you're the one getting arrested. You see where I'm going here, right? So you go back to the boy who got attacked. He was getting attacked. He's white, he's male, and that's enough. Whether he's heterosexual or not doesn't need to be established right now. If he's white and male, that's enough. So you go to any of the marches, any of the freedom marches, it's always police in riot gear, attacking white men, because it's predominantly white men who are being affected, who are turning up to try and get their voice heard, because the police are not representing the people and they are not standing under their oath. However, having said that, they will argue that they are standing under their oath because of the DEI inclusion that they're being trained to uphold. If you work for the police in any capacity, because it already said that here, didn't it? It already said at the top of this, it said that all police, regardless of rank, are constables. Every police officer, regardless of rank, irrespective of rank, it is from the office of constable that each officer derives their powers. So they come in as a constable, they are given the powers, they swear an oath of allegiance to those powers, and that's the oath which they carry through the progression of the chain of command. But nothing changes. Just because they are in charge of 100 or 1,000 men in London, etc., they are still a police officer as an individual operating under their oath. So they have no entitlement. If you're a police officer and you are taking commands from a ranking officer to tell you to do something you know is stepping outside of your oath, it is incumbent upon you to take that on as a crime. Why is it a crime? Let's look at that. The Law Commission. Misconduct in public office. This is the Law Commission published the final recommendations on the 4th of December 2020. On the 16th of September 2025, the government introduced 2 new offences in the Public Office Accountability Bill, which build on our recommendations. The problem that they're trying to address is that misconduct in public office is a common law offence. Common law is an individual's responsibility to uphold common law and to maintain peace and order and prevent crime, loss or harm to the community. And if you do get found guilty of causing loss or harm to anybody or anyone in the community, then you are subject to the law, ergo subject to a constable enacting in his power under his oath directives which allow him to exercise his power to apprehend you, arrest you, charge you, and put you through the judicial process to establish A, if you've broken the law, B, what the outcome is, and C, what the punishment is for that crime. Or if you're let free, then to let you go free. So if you are found to have misconduct in any one of those areas as a police constable, you are subject to this bill, misconduct in public office. Because remember, a police officer is a public officer. He's a member of the public just as we are. The only difference is he is bestowed the powers by the public to operate as a police constable under his oath, which is to protect the public from crime and prevent crime and to protect them from harm. Okay, so here it says that misconduct in public office is a common law offence. It is not defined in any statute. It carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The offence requires that a public officer acting as such willfully neglects to perform his or her duty and or willfully misconducts him or herself to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder without reasonable excuse or justification. Henry Novak. I do not need to explain to you the details of this, but for those of you who may have had trouble keeping up or just momentarily popped out, I'll explain. The willful misconduct of him was to not carry out an investigation. He put the boy's life at risk, whether he was already bleeding out or not, to the point of he would not get help in time is irrelevant. The police officer failed in his duty to uphold his oath in that situation to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder. So we've seen it. We don't trust him. We want him off the job and out, nowhere near it ever again. And that's just the start of it, without reasonable excuse or justification. What excuse or justification does he have? Well, there is a place where if they decide, the police, to bring him into disrepute and to accuse him of misconduct in public office, they do it in-house, don't they? They go through this place. They go through police conduct hearings. There's a whole list of hearings here and appeals and whether you're allowed to attend and under what capacity, if you are allowed to attend, i.e. you're a witness or a victim, etc. And there's loads of examples of officers being instantly dismissed you can have a look at. So coming back to the misconduct in public office, is that the offence is widely considered to be ill-defined and has been subject to recent criticism by the government, the Court of Appeal, the press and the legal academics. So if you look at it like that, you might think, well, the police and the government are actually doing something to protect the people from the rogue police officers. But actually, remember with the DEI, they're actually training to look out for these signs and to operate in a disproportionate manner. So this is how it is now. The left and the right operating at the same time inside this police system. The police are being taught one thing on one side, which is to act outside of their oath. And on the other side, they've got a legal framework and system being developed to bring them back into line. So how does that make sense? What, first you give them the powers or you give them the illusion or you misdirect them into operating outside of their oath. But then when it comes to them being protected for doing what you say, no, you have a law, a legal framework in place, misconduct in public office, to hold them accountable. And when they arrive in the position, they're so confused. They don't realize that the core issue is the training they may have received. They just think it's the incident. Because why? Because when you go into a court of law, in a hearing, the police investigating the police, how's that going to work out? They want to keep it all hush-hush. But they're going to say, no, we want to focus on what happened. My theory is that they're not going to focus on freedom the police think they have to carry out their duty in office. They don't have any moral compass in that situation. But in regards to the police officer in the Henry Nowak case, he absolutely 100% is in breach of his public oath and his duty as an officer, as a constable. And he should not be on the job. No, he should not. Based on the evidence, if you survey the public, they would universally say, no, take him off the job. Take him off the job now. Dereliction. He failed. He neglected his duty to the public. Take him off now. So where's it all going to lead to? Well, what's it going to take for the public to ultimately stand up and say enough is enough? Because ultimately we're the public, the police are the public, and we cannot have this anymore. They're not there to decide if you're fat, straight, gay, white, male, 2 foot tall, 10 foot tall, fat, ugly, disabled. It's not up to them to decide what the parameters are around receiving unbiased police attention as a serving member of the community who's operating as a constable sworn in under an oath. They are meant to be impartial, and impartiality is what they need to be teaching in police college. None of this DEI, none of this targeting certain frameworks around race, colour. They've said it. I've shown you on their own documentation. They've targeted white people by not listening to them, by not taking them into account, by pushing narratives around this race card and supporting those people as well, because they claim that they're being victimised. And you see it all across the country. You see it all across the Western world, where Islamification is taking over, where the caliphate is moving in. And yeah, so listen, I'm going to stop there because of this annoying neighbour, and I'll come back to you with another video at some point. Thanks for listening. If you stayed this far, thanks very much. Please like, subscribe, and if you know my neighbour next door, let's just drag him out and put him in the town stocks here, because the social contract needs to be upheld. So if you've got to do some knocking or banging, go down a workshop, mate. Take up a hobby. This is the GUGU Plan, and that's my annoying neighbour next door. Catch you later. Bye. Just want to say a special big thanks to Knockout Audits for that wonderful footage. I'm going to play it in full, well, at least a section of it now with the volume turned up. And yeah, pay attention, because you'll see at the end of it, you'll see the police further taking liberties. And when you watch it, just bear in mind, they're members of the public. The only difference between you as a member of the public and them in a uniform is they've taken an oath to protect you, to keep you from harm and crime. Yeah? So have a look at the way they treat that boy. What do you think's going on? If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll get a video up to you soon. Have a great day wherever you are. Catch you later. Bye.
I said move off that
Fucking punch him right,
I'm trying to do that way.
Put your hands behind your back!
I'm just fuck, bro. I'm trying to go.
No, you watch the fucking car, you dick!
What the fuck, bro? Please. I'm trying to go. That's it.
Get in the fucking car! I'm telling you now, get in the car!
Listen, bro. You're in the fucking car. No,